Good evening to you all. Thank you for attending our first of the year webinar. My name is Greg Atienza and I shall be your MC for this evening's webinar. I belong to SoulPH's 2020. It is a civil society organization which wants to help rekindle the soul of our country. And we are an issues-oriented and policy-oriented organization, and that is why we have webinars like this. To begin with, let us all enjoy this opening prayer, which will be in the form of a music video of Amazing Grace. So let us prayerfully watch this.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. 我最意的赦免。
Fui fiel más, hoy miro yo.
Perdutor salvo soy.
So much has changed in our world lately.
疫情中，这么多人失去生命，显明了生命的脆弱与短暂。
Pero la asombrosa gracia y amor de Jesús es más fuerte que la vida y la muerte. wo auch immer du bist, ruf seinen Namen an. Jesus.
Jesus.
Jésus.
Isa.
Yeshua. Jesus.
Don't wait another day.
Let us now come closer to home and let us sing our national anthem. If you will, if you can, you can stand up as we sing the national anthem together. Thank you very much. And for a proper welcome for this night's event, this webinar, I would like to introduce someone who needs no introduction. He was a former senator of the Philippines, two-time senator, former governor of Laguna province, and the former secretary of the Department of Interior and Local Government, and now currently the president of the Manila Hotel. Let us welcome our moderator for this evening, former Senator Joey Lina.
Maraming salamat sa iyo, kapatid na Greg Atienza. Sa inyo pong lahat, isang maganda at mapagpalang gabi. Happy New Year. Hindi pa naman huli ang lahat. Enero pa rin sa kasalukuyan. Kaya pwede pang bumati sa inyo ng happy, healthy, and prosperous New Year. Ang SoulPH's 2020, kakaibang pangalan, SoulPH's or SoulPH 2020. Ito po ay isang organisasyon na nagsimula noong pang 1983. Sa panahon na tayo ay nasa ilalim pa ng isang martial law government. Bagamat noong 1980, para doon sa mga kaedad ko, ay panahon pa yon ng bagamat lifted ang martial law no 1980, but it was lifted in paper. But sa mahang Oktubre 1 ng laban, yan ang unang pangalan, Soul, ay nakibaka para sa ating demokrasya at kalayaan. Those are many years ago. Freedom and democracy were restored in our country in 1986. And indeed, we enjoyed some freedom and we enjoyed some democratic space. We were able to elect our own leaders, both national and local. And we were able to express ourselves. Media in its entirety were opened and people have the freedom of expression. But after many years, Soul, Samahang Oktubre 1 ng Laban members decided to reunite. And so we had the reunion and we invited some other friends and we decided to relaunch Samahang Oktubre 1 ng Laban, 1 ng Oktubre sapagkat it was founded on October 1, 1983. But this time in 2020, we also met during the month of October and we decided that we will rename Samahang Oktubre 1 ng Laban to Soul Philippines 2020. The purpose now of this Samahan, Soul PH 2020, is to help educate our people on the pressing issues confronting our country and also to look for solutions to the problems that have been identified, all in the name of achieving a vision of a prosperous, just, and humane Filipino nation. And so here we are, we're having this series of webinars. Although we have had 2 webinars in the past year, 2020, but this year, we begin this series of webinar on a very important problem that our country is facing, education. After all, education has the highest priority in terms of budgetary allocation in Philippine government. But what is the state of Philippine education? Where are we? What are the strengths and weaknesses? What is really our objective as far as education is concerned? What is the Filipino, the image of Filipino that we want to see in the coming years? And how can the educational system help mold this Filipino image? We're very happy that our resource person for today, who is also a member of the Public Policy Research Group, who will provide us in the coming months the resource material and the speakers to discuss other important issues besetting our country. For example, in the next 2 weeks, we will have somebody from the PPRG or Public Policy Research Group, former Secretary of the Department of Agriculture, to discuss whether whether food security can be achieved in our country, but ensuring that the stakeholders like the farmers and the consumers are properly protected. But that is going ahead of this series of webinars. But today, our resource speaker is also a very well-known Filipino outstanding citizen, Brother Armin A. Luistro, FSC. He brings with him close to 40 years of experience in both the private and public sectors. He served as the Secretary of the Department of Education from June 2010 to 2016, where he led the implementation of the K-12 basic education program. Prior to that, ladies and gentlemen, Brother Armin was at the helm of the De La Salle University, serving as its president from 2004 to 2010. In previous years, Brother Armin also served as president of the De La Salle University system and several other La Salle schools. From 2017 to 2019, he returned to his post as president of De La Salle Philippines, the network of La Salle schools in the country. Currently, he is the brother visitor of the Lasallian East Asia District with a mandate to guarantee the unity and vitality of Lasallian communities and institutions in East Asia. Brother Armin is the professed member of the De La Salle Christian Brothers and an educator at heart. Brother Armin also served in various capacities in other government and intergovernmental organizations. There's so many of them, and I would not have the luxury of time of enumerating all of this involvement. So without much ado, to discuss learning from the learning crisis, our good friend, a patriot, Brother Armin A. Luistro. Let's give him a big round of applause. Use your icon for the applause.
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you very much, Senator Joey, a very good friend. And actually, when I was a student, I idolized Senator Joey and watched him from the sidelines when he was still in the Senate, and obviously when he was also governor of Laguna. Thank you also to SoulPH's. I think that's exactly what we are looking for as we open the new year. Nasaan nga ba ang diwa ng Pilipinas, no? Ng diwa ng mga Pilipino? And this may not be a very good topic to start the year. It may not be as hopeful as everyone may wish to do for this new year, but I think it's a topic that all of us will have to face. We cannot run away from reality. But let me start by saying that education is really a complex issue. And therefore, we need to look at it from a big perspective. Hindi pwedeng nakatutok lang sa isang maliit na bagay. I have to admit, Senator Joey, Greg, and the rest of our team, that among all the topics that I have been asked to present, this is one of the most heartbreaking. Because at heart, I really am an educator and I know nothing else but teaching and running schools. And the results of the recent tests tell us that we are not doing well. And I've been asking myself, how do you handle a student, a class, who do not rate well in an assessment instrument? Papagalitan mo ba? Sasabihan mo ba? Dapat nag-aral kayo? Bakit ba kayo ganito? And that's my perspective as we learn from this learning crisis. The African very common proverb says, and I think everyone knows this, it takes a village to raise a child. And therefore, as we look at the reality of our educational system, I think it is important for us to recognize that hindi naman ito pwedeng mabago ng isang tao lamang. Hindi isa lamang solusyon ang pwedeng sagot sa ating hinaharap. Hindi maaaring isang grupo lamang ang humanap ng intervention. All of us will have to be part of the solution, because the truth is, and I think that's the painful reality, we are all part of the problem. So I think this is something that is an invitation for all of us in this webinar to take on this perspective, to look at reality, to use the tests as learning, not to go into some kind of knee-jerk reaction. Delikado po yun. Kung bigla na lang natin sabihin, wag na natin gawin to, ito yung gawin natin. Let's not blame each other, but let us look for solutions, especially those that are evidence-based. Yung kitang-kita na dapat gagawin. No? Let me paint the big global picture. No? Unang-una, Ang UNESCO po noong 2017 pa released data and reminded us, all of us, educators and economies, governments, that there is a learning crisis. They called our current situation as a crisis. No? And they actually pointed to more than 600 million children and adolescents who are not reaching minimum proficiency levels in reading and mathematics. So this is where we are. No? This learning crisis is not about students who are unable to go to school. These are also a big number are students who are in school. They are studying, but they are not learning. Sa Pilipinas po, there is a group, and I've been part of that. I'm part of that. The Philippine Business for Education also looked at the same Philippine realities, our system, and called this crisis big, multifaceted, multi-player, and multi-generational. So, yung makikita po natin na test results over the past 2-3 years is a small snapshot. But if we want to look at the real problem, dapat medyo long-term or at the very least over 5-6 year study of what's happening in Philippine education. So there is no silver bullet to address this learning crisis. Ang importante po, kagaya ng sinabi ng African reminder for us, we have to work together to address this. And we must take concerted efforts because there is a solution to the problem. Some additional information about the global learning crisis that will give us a clue paano nga ba naman natin tutugunan yan. Ang datos po ng UNESCO tell us that the biggest impact syempre of the crisis is with children and adolescents. At makikita po natin yan sa lahat ng continent. No? Hindi lang po sa mahihirap na bansa. Kahit po sa mayayamang bansa na mga malalaking ekonomiya, meron din pong learning crisis and it's global. Kaya lang, makikita po natin na the biggest concentration of this crisis are in low-income regions. So, meron pong a connection yung poverty with the learning crisis. No? But hindi exclusive. No? Kalahati doon sa hindi nakakapagbasa ng mahusay at hindi nakakasolve ng mathematical problems are in countries that are well-resourced. No? Of course, in some of those, merong mga migrants. So, makikita po natin yan globally. Meron din po tayong tinatawag ngayon na problema dahil while in 2017 we acknowledge this problem, naabutan na rin po tayo nitong double shock. Dahil habang tinitingnan natin yung learning crisis, nagkaroon naman tayo ng pandemya. And because of school closures, at alam na alam po natin yan, economic recession na magtatagal pa, meron po tayong lalong dumami ang ating problema in this learning crisis. No? Meron po tayong mga pag-aaral na pagkatapos nitong pandemya na ito, kung matatapos siya, mas marami pang mga kabataan natin ang mahihirapan na bumalik sa eskwelahan kung ito ay magbubukas. No? Dito po sa Pilipinas, itong learning crisis na ito happened because of our continued school closures, tapos yung shifting po syempre into distance learning. wala naman po tayong real choice doon. Kaya lang, hindi naman tayo talaga ready fully to shift to this online learning. No? Lalong dumami yung ating problema in terms of number of students. Ang estimate po ng DepEd, 2.7 million. Dati, enrolled in schools. Ngayon, hindi po maka-enroll. No? And meron po tayong mga, syempre, enrolled pero wala naman po silang learning device. No? And then syempre, kapag meron tayong pangangailangan na pangkalusugan, merong kompetensya sa budget po yan. No? If we want to understand this, and maybe we could pick a few, I will not go through the 3 tests kasi medyo technical po ito. I will just show you some of the numbers. Ito po naman ay publicized, highly publicized. Yung PISA, ito po ay pang high school, pero ang kumuha po nito ay yung mga 15-year-olds. No? At 68% were sampled in the Philippines. Kita po natin doon sa ating average, ang Pilipinas po dito, compared with the other participants, really got very low scores. If not, we were the lowest scorers in these 3 subjects, reading, math, and science. No? Ang ating pong ka-level dyan ay Dominican Republic at Panama. Yung isa pong other test which confirmed largely the results of PISA is TIMSS. And TIMSS was taken in 2019. Yung PISA po is 2018, the year before. Pero yung TIMSS po is for grade 4. Ang mga Pilipinong kumuha nito ay grade 4. At talagang mababa rin po tayo dyan. Ang kinuha po natin ay math and science. No? And we are also very low in the results here. No? Konti po, kagaya po yung pangatlo is ang tawag na Southeast Asian. Ito po yung assessment. Medyo bago po itong test na to. At there are only 6 countries, our neighbors, who participated here. Cambodia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, and Vietnam. Hindi po kasama ang Singapore dito, hindi po kasama ang Hong Kong, ang Bangkok, ang Thailand hindi po rin kasama. Pero kagaya po ng 2 naunang test, ang ating pong level dito, wala pong numerical kasi meron silang system na bands. No? Pero yung ang masakit po dito, ang ka-level po natin ay yung Cambodia, Laos PDR, and Myanmar. So medyo ang pagtitinan po natin consistently, ang Vietnam has really overtaken us in terms of, at least from the point of view of the ratings, this testing. No? And what I wanted to do now is to try to look at and pick some of the data na mula dito na possible reasons kung bakit nasa ganitong level ang Pilipinas. No? Ang tawag po ni Senator Gatchalian dito ay wake-up call. Sabi niya, major crisis ito. Hindi lamang DepEd, CHED, TESDA, hindi lang mga eskwelahan ang kailangang tumanggap ng batikos dito. Tayong lahat ay kailangang harapin. Pero bago tayo gumawa ng mga solusyon, kailangan po nating pag-aralan ano ba yung rason. Meron bang root causes? Meron bang quick wins? Meron ba tayong magagawa kaagad-agad? Meron bang dapat pagsuriin at pag-aralan muna bago natin harapin? No? Definitely, Senator Gatchalian says hindi naman pwedeng business as usual. No? Like you and me, he says, this is so depressing and should serve as a wake-up call. Yung ginagawa ng ibang bansa, hindi po sila kumukuha ng test para hindi nila malaman kung anong level nila. Sabi nila, hindi na namin kailangang malaman ang katotohanan. But I think DepEd, our education officials, did the right decision. Mag-test tayo para malaman natin ano ba yung sitwasyon. Pero yung results ng test, kailangan nating lalo pang suriin para magkaroon tayo ng lessons and insights na maaari nating magamit. No? Isa-summarize ko na lang po dahil medyo masalimuot nga po ito, very complex and multifaceted. Hindi lang po iisa ang rason kung bakit mababa tayo. So, I will just divide it into 5 clusters, social equity, and I will start with that and then go to the other 4 clusters. No? Under social equity, makikita po natin yung isang very important data dito, no? Na yung pagkakaiba noong yung mga estudyante na kumuha, these are results from PISA worldwide. No? Yung mga scores ng mga nag-aral sa private schools versus nag-aral sa public schools are consistently show us that the more advantaged you are, the higher you get rating from the test. No? And these are the numbers. Yung mga galing sa private schools, and generally they have more resources, maybe more exposure. Sa reading, they are on the average 62 points ahead. Sa math, 52. And the same is true for science. No? Ganon din po, generally, ang difference between yung kung galing ka sa urban schools or communities or rural schools. Slightly lower, pero very significant din po ang difference. 42 ahead ang kung galing ka sa bayan, 36 sa math, and 37 sa science kung ikaw ay nasa kabayanan. No? What does this show? That across the different countries, disadvantaged communities may be dragging the scores down. But ang tingin ko po dito, this does not mean that because you are from a rural community or you study in a public school, na you are less intelligent and less capable of learning. I think ang lesson po sa akin dito is baliktad. Tanungin natin sarili natin. What if we gave the same advantages, the same gadgets, the same expert teachers to those who are in disadvantaged communities? Baka ang rating ng Pilipinas ay mas tumaas. And these are the numbers. Yung sa comparison between OECD countries, and this is PISA, with the Philippine scores of advantaged communities versus disadvantaged, show the same consistent pattern. Ang nag-point out po nito sa akin is a former DepEd Assistant Secretary, at sinabi nga niya po na this 88 or 89 differentiation tells us that the scores and the difference for advantaged students and communities should be one of the areas that could give us a clue paano ba natin solvein ito. No? Another lesson na makukuha po natin sa datos ngayon, galing po ito sa DepEd. At sino ba yung disadvantaged sa Pilipinas ngayon? No? In the DepEd report, there are still more than 4,500 schools na walang tubig, walang access to water. May implication po yan sa kanilang health. No? And that's around close to 10% of our schools. And around above 3% of our schools walang kuryente. That's around 1,500. Quick check, palagay ko kung tututukan po natin yan, talagang madali namang solusyonan yan in the next 2-3 years. Madali po nating siguraduhin pagtulungan ng national and local government, siguraduhin natin na meron tayong access to water and electricity. Pero I just want to point out that especially yung schools without electricity, nung magkaroon po ng online learning, mag-shift to online learning, lalo pong naging disadvantaged yung mga batang yun. And over and above that, kahit naman po may kuryente na at nasa kabayanan sila, nag-survey din po ang DepEd sa ating mga estudyante. Out of 22 million plus students, close to 7 million said that they have no connection. So may gadget, wala namang stable connection. So hindi po magamit yung gadget for learning. Kahit meron. Yung iba, walang gadget mismo. And kahit may gadget, more than 6 million sabi, wala naman akong pang-load. So, lumalaki po yung ating problema because of this. I wanted to point out na ang lalaki po ng numbers na to. But there are some quick solutions here. And just to mention, DICT has plans about providing Wi-Fi access this year and next year. And also, there are private groups that are ready to donate mga desktops and other used computers also for learning. Ito po yung, just to summarize, meron ba tayong mga madaliang solusyon na kung pagtutulong-tulungan natin, local government, CSOs, foundations, national government, baka naman pwede nating tutukan itong mga social inequities na ito. Tinitingnan ko po yung ating mga estudyante mismo, ROTC, CWTS, pati po yung scouting. Siguro naman, pag sabihin natin, ilista natin yung mga eskwelahan na walang tubig, baka pwede natin yung ibigay na project sa kanila. Yung ating po mga senior high school, may mga capstone. And part of the curriculum is creating a capstone project that solves everyday problems. Do yung ating mga problema na nakikita sa edukasyon, ibigay po natin sa ating high school students and teams, pati po yung sa student college research. May mga grupo po na nagbibigay ng tulong. I know of the Yellow Boat Foundation, for example, that provides actual boats so that education can be accessible to those in small islands. Meron din pong Bike for the Philippines. I will not enumerate all of those groups. But all of these are so helpful because even if you are one family and you are able to help one student gain access to school and hopefully better learning, masusolusyonan po natin ito. Yung mga nasa ibaba ng ranggo, konti lang tulong po yan, malaki ang kanilang maiaambag para maiakyat ang rating ng Pilipinas at makapag-aral sila. Our Department of ICT has 33,000 Wi-Fi centers in the last year and this year combined. That is in their budget and in their plan. Tutukan po natin yon, tulungan natin ang DICT na makonect. Sana po yung i-connect ng DICT na Wi-Fi centers dun sa mga eskwelahan na walang connectivity at saka walang kuryente. Sabi po ng BPO group, meron silang computers, 200,000 used pero functioning na pwede pong i-donate. Can you imagine if that is shared to students who have no gadgets? Di sana ngayong pandemya, pwede po sila namang makapag-aral. Ateneo de Davao has presented a project to put up satellites. And I asked them, kaya ba ito? Sabi nila, kayang-kaya. Sabi ko, paano yung public school na walang pondo? Sabi nila, pwedeng i-share noong mga private schools yung satellite na i-connect yung ating mga eskwelahan pati na, para doon sa mga public schools sa kanilang area. We could populate this list with small little things. Ang importante po dyan, yung mga maliliit na maiaambag natin para po yung mga kabataan na nag-aaral ay hindi naman masyadong ma-disadvantage. No? Kung titignan po natin yung more sustainable solutions apart from those little quick wins, no? Palagay ko po yung ating HEIs, both private universities and SUCs. Baka pwede po nila talagang tutukan na ang mandato ng pamantasan is to spur up the local economic development. Ito po yung tinatawag natin na community colleges na tumututok, nagbibigay ng solusyon na hindi lang academic, na connected with the local needs and problems. Distributed po naman ang mga HEI sa Pilipinas. If we could just renew the call, they can be a big player and that could be sustainable. No? Yung pong, ito po, matagal ko nang pinag-usapan namin ni Senator Joey, yung LGU sa aking pong palagay. At ito po talagang na experience ko nung nasa DepEd ako. Ang dami pong nagagawa ng magaling na mayor, ng mahusay na gobernador kapag sila'y naghahanap ng localized solutions. No? Meron silang pondo, kitang-kita nila yung grassroots. No? Ang bayanihan 2 na naging solusyon to heal as one sa Pilipinas ay sana po ma-institutionalize natin at sana kahit pagkatapos ng pandemya, yung bayanihan na ito ay maging bayanihang pampaaralan. Because all of these problems, disadvantaged kids, are not simply directly education problems. Kuryente, tubig, kailangan natin ng tulong at kailangan nating magtulungan. No? Gusto ko pong tutukan itong isang napakalaking at mahabang problema. Alam ko may presentation na po nito si Secretary Shell Habito. Pero kailangan po natin itutok ito at i-connect sa edukasyon. No? Yung papaalala ko lang po, yung ating, sabi po ng SIPAM, lumabas po ito doon sa test, doon sa ating SIPAM test, 52% of learners have poor health. Nakakaiyak po yan. 1 out of 2 learners na nandoon na enrolled sa school ay may mahinang kalusugan. Hindi na po ito directly an education problem. But can you imagine the effect of that in their learning? Nandun nga sa eskwelahan. Nakakapag-aral kaya yan? Tingnan niyo po yung the other figure. 44% of our students said in the survey, in the test, that they experience hunger. Ibig sabihin yan, pumunta sila doon sa eskwelahan noong umaga, hindi pa nagbe-breakfast. Can you imagine a student sitting in your class, nag-aaral kayo, lahat nag-engaged in learning and teaching, but 4 out of 10, more than almost 5 out of 10 are hungry. Palagay niyo po, makakapag-aral yan at may papasok sa kokote. And ito, surprise po ako. 37% of the students said they lack sleep. These are young people between 5 to 18 years old. And this is self-reporting. Feel nila kulang sila sa tulog. Hindi ko po alam kung bakit. Baka Baka naman ang iba dyan, nagfi-Facebook hanggang alas 12, hanggang alauna, hindi ko rin po alam. Pero these are very important results. No? But look at this. Ito pong mga batang yan na binanggit ko, hungry, lack sleep, are unable to learn, are the same students that took PISA, TIMSS, and CPAM. At pakikita po natin na talaga namang ang scores nila, if you relate them with just nutrition, as well as what they feel, how they are prepared when they go to class, I think a major quick response and intervention is not directly educational. It is a nutrition problem. And as Shell always reminds us, kapag yung brain development ng bata sa stunting ay hindi na-address within the first 1,000 days, kahit po nasa eskwelahan na yan at pakainin natin, that brain development rarely will be addressed. So, what this tells us is these numbers, these test rates will be with us for some time unless and until we're able to address the stunting as well as the malnutrition, the nutrition problem in the Philippines, no? Among our students. No? Ang numbers po ng DepEd is a total of 2.2 billion. That's 10% of our total number of students enrolled, no, are malnourished. Meron naman po na school-based feeding program, pero napakababa po. I'll show you the budget for that is 6 billion. Parang napakalaki. Pero pag i-divide mo po yung 6 billion na yan sa 2.2 million students, baka hindi po natin mapakain yan ng sapat. No? Double shock, yung pong September survey says, naku, ang hunger incidence po natin lalo pang tumaas. So, the numbers that you see here will continue to rise, and this is naman because of the economy as well as the COVID, the pandemic. So, wala na po ba tayo talagang pag-asa? Kailangan po nating tingnan ang anong mga possible solution naman. Meron pang mga quick wins. Alam po nyo, ito po, talagang sinasabi naman ng DOH, during the first 1,000 days, there is nothing better for children, for infants, than breastfeeding. And maybe this is really part of what we should be promoting. Marami po sa mga kasama ni Senator Joey, hindi ko na po inabutan to, alam po yung Nutriban. At ito po, even in Shell Habitus reports, tell us that there was a very important achievement because of Nutriban. Meron to mga bagong mga grupo na nagsusulong naman ng something like Nutriban pero hindi tinapay, Mingo. Mga pwede pong ihalo sa iba't ibang putahe. So, meron pong mga grupo at meron pong solusyon na nandito na ang kailangan lang po natin expand it para ma-cover natin yung 2.2 million na at 30% of the population who will go hungry. No? At ito po, yung 6.4 billion, nasa budget po yan last year ng DepEd. Pero titingnan po natin, kulang na kulang yan. And po siguro pwedeng tutukan ng mga legislators at siguraduhin. Alam ko si Senator Grace has been pushing for a higher budget school-based feeding program. Gusto ko lang pong i-point out yung isang talagang bagsak ang Pilipinas is in our consumption of vegetables. Ang studies tell us that the yearly consumption of vegetables per capita, bawat Pilipino, ay around 22 kilograms per year. Ang sabi po ng World Health, kailangan nating erase yan to 148 kilos per person per year. Ang layo pa po natin doon. Hindi daw po makain sa gulay ang mga Pilipino. So, these are all little quick wins. And yan po, yung table ng FAO recommending 146. No? Pero kung gusto po natin ay sustainable solutions, palagay ko po yung national government should really focus on food security. Marami debatable po kung paano yung mga strategies dyan, pero kailangan niya ng tutok ng national government. Palagay ko po, ang LGU, ang kailangang tutok ay yung local feeding. Kasi marami pong logistical problems yan na ang makakapagsolusyon lang yan ay ang local government. No? Ang mga CSOs po, private groups, church-based groups, pwede pong, lalong-lalo na ngayong pandemya, ay humanap ng paraan to create interventions for hunger so that we can bring about hope instead of staying hungry. And then finally, ang long term po talaga dyan, yung ating mga magulang, pati po yung consumer. Sana wala na pong junk food, high sugar, high salt. Baka doon sa Filipino table, ang long-term solution, hindi lang kumain. Kailangan kumain ng nutritious food na will also be the critical component for learning. And whatever solution it is, kailangan lahat po tayo kasama. Ang akin pong ina-advocate ay kung ano mo ang solution dun sa hunger, kailangan kasama lahat. Farmers, fisher folks, yung tricycle driver, jeepney driver, bringing them to the communities, farmers and tables, including talipapas, yung ating mga kasama sa mga barangay. It has to be inclusive and it has to create collective impact. I will not go through the details of that. But saan natin kukunin yan? At ito namang pasukin natin po yung budget. Kasi sabi rin po ng PISA, ang isa pong tinignan ng test, hindi lang yung score ng mga bata. Tinanong po nila, teka, magkano ba ang iniaambag ng gobyerno sa edukasyon? Medyo consistent din po ang Pilipinas dito. Hindi ko na i-compare yung ating sarili sa ibang bansa. Pero tingnan naman po ninyo dun sa graph kung gaano kalaki ang ini-invest ng Thailand. This is medyo late, medyo old na po yung data na to. Pero hindi naman po naglalayo yan sa data current data. Ang layo nung Thailand. Pati po yung Vietnam. Hindi naman siguro mas mayaman ng ganon ang Vietnam. Pero tingnan po ninyo, ang kanilang investment sa education. Nagulat po ako dito. Sabi po ng PISA, ang ginagastos ng Pilipinas per learner is only 10% equivalent to the average gastos ng mga gobyerno para sa estudyante ng OECD countries. Sabi ko, ganun ba natin tinitipid ang mga estudyante natin? No? But I know money is an issue. At maraming nagtrabaho po kami ni Senator Joy sa gobyerno. Alam namin na yung malaking pizza pie ng budget ay pinaghati-hatian. Pero kung titingnan po natin, kailangan nating pag-usapan, baka naman pwedeng laki-lakihan po ang ating spending para doon sa estudyante. That will have an impact on learning. No? Yung sinasabi nga po sa atin, ang DepEd budget, tingnan po natin, itong table na to, simula noong 2010 hanggang 2020, tumaas, bumaba yung DepEd budget. No? Nag-umpisa po noong 2010 ng 11, a little over 11%. Tapos nag-end noong 2020, naging ano po siya, 13% of the national budget. Pero I wanted to point out yung 2017. Tingnan po yung 2017. Noong 2017, ang DepEd budget lang reached 17% of the national budget. So, pag idagdag po ninyo dito, yung other SUCs, CHED, noong pong 2017 was the highest percentage-wise to the national budget that the education sector came close, parang 19.4%. No? So, kaya naman kung pipilitin, kung talagang magkukommit tayong lahat, hindi po malayo na mangarap tayo na maabot natin yung ideal education budget, 20%. Sana maisulong po yan sa susunod na kongreso. No? Ito pong, tingnan po natin kung ang education sector budget ngayong 2021 ay naabot yung 20% noong national budget. Alam po nyo, the education sector will get an additional 900, will be at 900 billion level. That will be the 20% of the current, I think it's 4.5 trillion now. So, dapat 900 billion, kung seryoso tayo sa education, pumunta. Out of that, mga 720 billion ang pupunta sa DepEd. Last year, 554 billion lang ang DepEd. Ang laki po ng maitutulong niyan sa kalidad ng edukasyon. Lalong-lalo na kung magagamit ng husto. In real terms, that means bawat estudyante, kung lahat ng increase na yon sa budget ay pupunta sa pangangailangan ng estudyante, 8,000 pesos per student per year ang magiging dagdag sa budget. No? So, quick wins for us, siguro dapat naman i-advocate nating lahat. Nothing less, dapat 20% ng national budget. At dapat commitment yan. Pagbigyan na ng ibang agencies ang education sector, DepEd, TESDA, CHED. At siguraduhin natin na 20% talagang dun sa edukasyon. Pangalawa, maganda pong news ito. Yung sa Mandanas ruling, sa 2022, next year na, ang laki po nung makukuha ng LGU. At siguro si Senator Joey, maraming magibigay na inputs dito. Can you imagine, sa 2022, yung increase sa LGU income nationwide, pupunta direkto sa mga LGUs, will be 225 billion. Baka naman pwede tayong mangarap kung ang national government magko-commit ng 20% ng national budget, baka naman yung makukuha ng LGU ay what? 20%? 30%? Ilagay ni mayor, ni governor doon sa mga pangailangan ng edukasyon. Naku, sisiguraduhin ko po, kung magagawa po yan ng national public servants as well as the local, marami po ang maitutulong nito, maiaambag sa ating problema. Pero, wag namang gastusin sa edukasyon doon sa mawawaldas. Kasi pwede po namang magpapinta, okay naman yung pinta, pwede namang bag. Pero kailangan nating tutukan, ano yung critical sa learning? Kailangan ba ng library? Kailangan ba ng computer hubs? Kailangan ba ng teacher aids? Pwede po nating pag-aralan. Not just because we need to spend. We need to make sure that we are smart in using that same money. No? Yan po, yung sustained commitment of the national government plus the LGU, hindi po basta-basta increase ng budget. Kailangan smart investment on education. Marami pong LGU akong kilala na pinapag-aralan kung ano yung paggagastosan nila na talagang will redound to a learning increase in competency of the students. No? Ang tawag po dyan hindi expense, ang tawag po dyan investment. We need to, alam mo po nyo, yung isang napaka-importanteng bahagi ng education sector, yung local school board. Tatapatin ko po kayo, ang experience ko dyan, minsan nagiging highly politicized. Pero may nakita rin po ako ng mga local school boards na kung saan yung local leader, pinapabayaan yung educators and professionals to really promote what would be good for the students and have an impact on learning. Ang laki po ng naitutulong. I know the work of Synergia, for example, where they bring together different stakeholders into a town hall meeting and via consensus. Meron po tayong mga experiences niyan na kung paano they can come together and move as one. At the end of the day, and this is part of the balancing act. Sa DepEd is the only agency na hindi pa completely decentralized. And I'm happy that that is the case because kailangan po merong central national curriculum, merong pong issues on hiring na dapat ay may standards tayo. Pero palagi ko po, we could empower local leaders, principals, superintendents, but we cannot just do that via DepEd orders. We have to give them money. At ang importante po dyan, yung MOOE at saka capital outlay na sana ma-download at sila na yung magdedesisyon kung sa ano ang talagang pangangailangan sa locality. Ngayon, syempre may issue tayo dyan ng corruption. Di dapat titingnan din po natin kung meron tayong monitoring system na pwedeng makatulong para yung magagaling na local leader ay mabibigyan ng incentive. Ang importante rin po dyan, and I know Secretary Briones has also been pushing for this, yung school level decisions. Ay talaga namang hindi po kaya na lahat ay iakyat sa central office o kaya kahit sa region or sa division. Kailangan yung ating mga principal ay properly prepared and ready to take on the cudgels of leadership. The last two is really very important. So, but I'll just go through this quickly. Yung curriculum po, nakikita po natin na yung this is very important kasi po yung pinapag-usapan. Ano ba itong mother tongue? I just wanted to show that in the among the tests sa CPAM, lahat po ng mga 6 countries that joined CPAM were using their respective mother tongues in their curriculum. Ang naiba lang po ay ang Pilipinas. Because we have our respective mother tongue, I think by now there are 19 mother tongues. But tayo hanggang grade 3 lang. And then, meron tayong bridging from grade 4 to grade 6 into Filipino and English. Ito po yung differentiation. Kailangan po natin pag-usapan yan. Yung karatig natin na mga bansa, ang iba po sa kanila mas mataas. Ang Vietnam mas mataas sa atin. Pero ang ginagamit po nilang sa eskwelahan ay Vietnamese. Nung mag-test po sila, ang kanilang test ay Vietnamese din. Tingnan nyo po yung ginamit nating language sa CPAM test. Tayo lang po ang gumamit ng English na testing material doon sa CPAM. So, maraming questions. Some of these are debatable. Should we continue the mother tongue until grade 6? Are our mother tongues developed enough for the competencies up to grade 6? Bakit tayo gumamit ng English as the medium for the test? And what if we use the respective mother tongues, etc.? So, komplikado po ito, but I just wanted to show you the reality and the data. No? Yung K-12 po is also being asked, anong gagawin natin sa K-12? May problema, kasama ba sa problema dyan yung K-12 at kailangan ba nating baguhin yan? Ito po yung data. Lahat po ng mga bansa na gumawa ng SIPAM ay merong 12 years of education. Ang naiba nga lang po ay ang Myanmar because they start a year earlier, pero lahat po ng mga 6 countries are really 12 years of education. Nagbabago-bago lang po ng configuration, but in general, they're all K-12. No? The curriculum, in terms of quick wins, palagay ko, ang DepEd po, meron silang tinatawag na Learning Action Cells. No? Ito pong mga ito ay importante. Lahat sila pwedeng makonvene ng principal at pwede po nilang pag-usapan ano ang problema, sila din po mismo ang pwedeng maghanap ng solusyon. So that is one very important process na pwede pong umpisahan na. No? Pangalawa, baka kailangan talaga nating pag-aralan. Yung mga test results po, meron po yung per country report. At ina-analyze po yan, pwede pong magbigay ng specific recommendations per country yung nagbigay ng test. So, TIMSS, PISA, SIPAM. No? So, pwede po natin yung pag-aralan. Hindi pa po natin masyadong natingnan yan. No? Pangatlo, wala po tayong magagawa. Nandyan na yan and we are adapting to it. Maraming problema, but IT is an important tool for learning. Let's maximize it. No? Despite the problems, pagtulungan po nating solusyonan yun. No? And marami nagkakaproblema. Si teacher hindi maka-adjust sa online teaching. Si parent hindi rin alam paano tututukan yung anak sa bahay. Meron pong mga grupo na nag-open ng webinars, chat rooms for teacher-parent support for this shift to our online learning. Some sustainable solutions, aside from smart investment, palagi sinasabi po ng PISA, tutukan ninyo yung mga disadvantaged, the last mile schools. Ang laki po ng naiiging tulong yan. Ganyan din po ang ginawa ng Finland. One of the best examples, showcase of education reform. They focused on the disadvantaged students and schools. And the result after 3 decades, medyo matagal po ang reform sa education, were really, really good. No? Meron po tayong napakagagaling na teachers, including those in private schools. Bakit kailangan bawat teacher, bawat school gagawa ng kanya? Pwede ba tayong shareable course packs or study guides para na walang errors, pero hindi binibenta. Free. Magaling naman po ang Pilipino ng makipag-share. Kailangan din po natin ng assessment na independent. Hindi DepEd or CHED ang nag-check, ang nag-audit ng kanyang sistema o ng estudyante. So, baka kailangan natin ng third-party assessment agency and kailangan po nating strengthen the mother tongue but also review. Bakit yung ating mga kasamang mga neighbors, lahat sila mother tongue ang gamit? Meron ba tayong matututunan sa kanila? No? Finally, there are some very interesting lessons on school management. No? And based on data, medyo masakit din po ito sa akin. At hindi po makapaniwala, but this is what the data tells us. The students report, both in PISA and CPAM, that 65% of our students experience bullying in schools. Naku, kailangan po nating tutukan ito at tignan ng maayos bakit at ano ang ating pwedeng gawin. No? Pangalawa, 20% of them, 1 out of 5 said they feel unsafe in school. Aba, bakit kaya? And then 1/4, 26% said they feel lonely in school. Ito po kailangang tutukan ng principal ng mga teachers yung ating school environment. Because kung ganito po yung experience ng mga bata, hindi po sila matututo at hindi sila pupunta sa eskwelahan. No? Under school management, kailangan po nating tingnan na our data shows na among the 6 countries of Southeast Asia, Filipino teachers have the best academic qualifications. Kaya lang, ito po yung mga problema. Based on the reports of the students, sabi nila, 60%, these are grade 5 students, said that they experience na yung klase nila hindi nag-uumpisa on time. Kasi matagal bago mag-settle down ang mga bata at hindi siguro ma-handle ng teacher. Aba, kulang yung oras sa learning. Ganon din po ang sabi ng mga 15-year-olds. 35% of them said, hindi rin nagsisettle down right away yung class. Meron po tayong management issue dyan, classroom management issue. Medyo worrisome po yung isa pa. 40% of the students said that their teachers were absent. Hindi ko lang alam kung anong frequency, iba-iba po yan, pero at least 40% said ang teacher nila ay were absent at some stage doon sa school year. Worrisome po yan because and then the other data tells us that 20% of students had to share a textbook. Akala ko po nung time ko naayos na natin yung textbook ratio, but that means kulang pa rin ang ating textbook ngayon. Bago po natin masolusyonan yan, baka meron na tayong mga panibagong digital textbooks. Baka naman mas maganda na yun na yung ating tutok. No? Quick wins, balik po tayo dun sa learning action cells. Bawat eskwelahan, kung si principal mag-convene, they'll be able to identify the problem and then maybe look for local solutions. Palagay ko minsan overworked yung teachers because they do things that are not directly for learning but to take care of the students, organization. Baka kailangan ang DBM should allow teachers' aides dun sa mga classrooms, lalo na pagka medyo malalaki. Yung isa pong tanong, sa ibang countries sa labas ng Pilipinas, ang elementary nag-uumpisa 8 o'clock, some mga 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. Baka maging solusyon yan pag-aralan ng DepEd, baka kailangan later in the morning ang umpisa ng klase pag nag-face-to-face na tayo para yung mas makatulog ng konti ang ating mga estudyante. Monitor inclusion. Tingnan natin kung merong mga bata na feeling lonely sa eskwelahan or feeling bullied. Kailangan meron tayong report at may solution. But most importantly, i-highlight ko po rito, baka importante increase quality learning hours. Hindi lang 200 school days. Siguraduhin natin na bawat oras ng school day ay a big chunk of it, if not all of it, is into learning. Anong ibig sabihin yan? Ay baka bawas-bawasan natin yung mga time spent for sayaw, fiesta preparation, palarong pambansa, baka yung monitoring, kailangan automated na para yung si teacher hindi nahihirapan na mag-monitor. Pero will also be helpful in accountability. Sana merong mga foundations that will give more scholarships for teacher education so that we will get the best, the brightest, and the most committed. And maybe, para tayo magsama-sama naman, dati po, panahon ni Senator Angara, meron pong EDCOM or Education Committee na pinag-uusapan ang lahat ng ito, and the tutok is not to blame but to look for solutions. No? So baka yung EDCOM ay pwede nating tingnan. Bago ba yan? Ang isa pong napakagandang programa that has been running for years is the Brigada Eskwela ng DepEd. Baka we will take this learning crisis in our hands, but rather than just prepare for the school year every year, magwawalis lahat ng sektor, baka ang tutok natin ngayon for the next 5-10 years, if not 20 years, magtulong-tulong tayo, Brigada Eskwela, para ating tutukan ang learning crisis. Yan po yung model na ipinupush ng World Bank at sinasabi nila lahat po ng sektor, politician, judiciary, other sectors, international actors should all work together. Ang tutok po nating lahat ay learning. Ang mga bata ba ay natututo, no? At balik tayo doon sa it takes a whole village to raise a child, but this time we have to make sure that there is time for learning. I will end with this kasi galing din po ito sa study na sabi po ng PISA, kanila pong tiningnan ang growth mindset. Paano po nila tinanong yan? Tinanong nila yung estudyante, your intelligence is something about you that you can't change very much. Ang sabi po ng ating mga estudyante, 31% of our students agreed, I cannot do much with the intelligence I have now. Kung ikumpara po ninyo yan sa mga OECD countries, halos doble. Sabi ng ang sa OECD countries, 63%. Ganito rin po ang ating problema ngayon. Ito pong learning crisis na meron tayo ngayon, meron ba tayong growth mindset? Do we end this webinar and say, ay nako, kawawang Pilipinas, ang daming problema, ang problema dyan, DepEd, CHED, ang problema dyan, budget, wala na tayong magagawa? Or should we look at this problem and say, hindi, kaya nating tutukan, kaya nating gumawa ng paraan, Pilipino tayo, we can do something about it. Magbrigada tayo para tutukan natin ang problema ng ating mga paaralan. Maraming salamat po ngayong gabi. Sana hindi ko po sinira ang inyong bagong taon. Balik sa iyo, Senator Joy.
Okay, maraming salamat sa iyo, Brother Armin. Napakagandang presentasyon at marami kaming natutunan. Brother Armin, marami ng katanungan na inihanda at pinagsama-sama, kinategorize ni kapatid na Greg Atienza. Bago pa lang itong webinar na ito ay meron ng mga inihandang question yung ating mga participants, no? Kaya bibigay ko si Greg para simulan yung pagtatanong batay doon sa mga inihanda na. Pero meron mga tanong sa chat box, pipili rin tayo dito, yung mga hindi pa naitanong ay kukuhanin natin dito sa chat box na ito. Muli, mabuhay ka, Brother Armin. Palakpakan natin si Brother Armin Luistro. Thank you very much for a well-prepared and brilliant presentation. Animo, Brother Armin, sabi
Salamat po.
ng Tagalasal. Okay. So Greg, take it from here.
Maraming salamat, Brother Armin. Ang unang katanungan may kinalaman sa pondo kasi obviously marami mga pwede pagtuunan ng quick wins. Subalit kung wala namang pondo, wala tayong masyado makikilo. So ang first question is from Ariel Dries. He submitted this before. What would be smart priorities for the national DepEd? So I phrase it that way because you mentioned a while back that the local decisions should be the local school boards or local school units should be given a chance to identify priority problems and work out priority solutions. Tapos yung pondo, no? But at the national level, what can be done? What should be prioritized, Brother Armin?
Quickly lang. One, teacher support and the urgent maintenance problems of schools. Iba-iba yan, no? So, ang iba sa kanila kailangan ng equipment, iba kailangan doorknob, iba kailangan ipa-repair yung ceiling, or kailangan ng teacher support. Magkakahalo na yan, pero ang problema natin, marami yan hindi mo naman pwedeng iplano. So, ang advocacy ko, bigyan natin ng pondo ang principal na meron siyang, kasi ang DBM, ano rin yan very strict. Hindi mo pwedeng baguhin kung sa item dapat sa equipment, hindi pwede. Baka naman the budget of every principal, meron siyang a certain percentage of the budget is for contingency. Minsan, alam mo, bigyan natin ng for every year, ang principal like 10% of the budget of the whole school, hindi specify kung saan. You can have a short list, bahala ka na, make a judgment but make a report. That's one. The second one, sana meron ding budget ang bawat school or division na papayagan ng DBM na for anong tawag dito, yung mga for example, everything from security guard, alam mo, janitor, walang mga ganyan. Little things, no? Feeding sa feeding program, ang gumagawa niyan, teacher pa rin na teacher, no? So, hindi maka-concentrate si teacher doon sa kanyang classroom work kasi ang dami pang gagawin, no? So, there are many other work in school na pwede namang ibigay na at sabihin. Baka pwedeng LGU rin, no? Third, yung teacher training and upgrading, no? Medyo may issue kung DepEd rin mismo ang gagawa noong in-service training. There are some in-service training na pwedeng DepEd, pero mas maganda kung independent group. Palagay ko, mas maganda kung yung SUCs o kaya yung mga private universities, gumawa sila ng programa, tapos parang ginagawa sa voucher system. Ang bawat teacher, maghanap kayo ng magagandang programa, kayo na mag-enroll so that they will be able to choose those that will really be of help to them. But finally, ang hindi natin pwedeng kalimutan yung pangangailangan ng bawat estudyante. Some of them are textbooks. My God, I think we could really make sure that every student has textbooks. But our legislators will really have to check the procurement process. Napaka-masalimuot yung procurement process natin. That really needs upgrading. But ang maganda, Greg, ang daming solusyon na pwede talaga na IT-based. So, ang dami yung mga pwede ng shareable, sabi ko kanina, na hindi naman kailangan gumastos, pero will have a big impact on learning. Just a few of the things that we could look at.
Okay. You mentioned Brother Armin, and it caught my attention because it seems to cut across the wins that you were referring to had to do with local action, learning action cells.
Yes.
Hindi ba natin pwedeng palakasin yan? Kasi yung sinasabi mong budgeting, di ba dapat bottoms up tayo ngayon? based on
Tama.
a list of particulars. Principal, ito ang kailangan namin, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hindi ba pwedeng paangatin niya? Kasi ang nangyayari ngayon, si congressman, pipili kung anong gusto niyang project, tapos pababa, whether it is relevant or not. I'm not criticizing anyone in particular, but should not the bottoms-up approach be strengthened through the learning action cells?
Actually, even in other systems abroad, kasi ang una-una, getting data, analyzing the data, identifying the problems, and coming up with solutions has been tried and tested on the local level is actually the best response. No? Because school management yun eh. They know the ground. So yes, there is a system there. Kailangan lang natin palawigin. Baka yung DBM budget for contingency can be attached to that so that the use of that budget is part of the process and the solutions that are locally based.
Nahirapan ako doon sa statistics mo kanina. Bilang magulang at kami mag-asawa, we are familiar with the conditions when we go out on missions. Kaawa-awa talaga itong mga estudyante natin. The learning action cells may very well be the problem solvers that will make things happen, that will remove pain. No? Imagine, gutom yung estudyante and all that. Why can't that not be addressed? Parang napakasimple. And bullying and all these things, Brother Armin.
Parang I have seen so many of our schools, small schools, addressing, alam mo, malaki, mapagmalasakit ang ating mga teachers eh. Kahit walang DepEd order yan, pag may makitang estudyante sila na nagugutom, out of their own pockets, nagbibigay. No? So, let's harness what is natural to our teachers. Pero, bigyan natin ng budget. So, baka kailangan, every school may budget for feeding. Tapos, minsan, huwag naman natin masyadong very strict si DBM tsaka si COA na kailangan nakalista lahat ng mga pangalan. I think it could be something that we could work on with the national government. Just a little leeway so that the local leaders can respond without too much interference, pero with the monitoring then of the bureaucracy. The bureaucracy naman can adjust to the realities on the ground.
Okay. Brother Armin, I know that in Singapore and Hong Kong, teachers are regarded as the most important public servant. Kung hindi ako nagkakamali dito, yung sundalo at kapulisan ang pinakamataas na sahod. Suntok ba sa buwan? Why can't we have teachers at the highest level of compensation para hindi na sila kailangan, sila pa bibili ng mga gamit-gamit ng estudyante and all that. At umuutang pa, baon sa utang sila, sagad ang kanilang mga GSIS and pag-ibig. Why can't we make that? I mean, hindi ba?
Masakit sa akin, to be very honest, mahal ko ang ating kapulisan at alam ko na sila ay
nag-sisikabayan. What I'm just saying is, kung pa-prioritize mong education, then you put your money where your mouth is. Put it on the teachers.
I perfectly agree, and I think part of the additional budget should be really for teachers. Siyempre, hindi lang yun yung solusyon, because part of it is capacitating the teachers themselves naman, di ba? So apart from that, dapat meron din tayong budget that should go to upgrading and teacher training na tunay, no? Kasi minsan attending a seminar, kung participation lang, wala namang addition yan sa iyong teaching skills, di ba? Kailangan merong competency based din naman, di ba?
Competency based. Okay. So I don't know if I missed it, but in terms of teaching capability, how do we fare? You mentioned that our teachers are actually highly qualified.
based on yung 6 countries na kalaban natin dyan, Vietnam, Laos, PDR, Cambodia. So, in this part of the region, lahat ng teachers natin have a bachelor's degree and many of them has a master's degree. So, wala tayo sa academic paper qualification. Pero, kailangan meron tayong a second metric to make sure that they are also competent in terms of the actual classroom teaching.
So that's a management. We have a number of questions where I sense also the frustration of the ones giving the question. What can they do? They ask. As an educator, how do we make sure that we, as parents, or rather, are prepared to lead our students in going through this crisis? It talks about this current crisis. How do we process ourselves as frontliners? This is a parent in the field of education. That's one. And related, how can ordinary citizens actively help relative to the learning crisis? What's the best thing to do in times like this? So galing to kay Consuelo Sapanta, Angel Sabas, Roderick Ilagan, Marilyn Comandao, and Annie Salvador. They're talking as parents.
Okay. Masalimuot siya, pero my response is yung tried and tested DepEd program. Brigada Eskwela. Alam mo yung Brigada Eskwela is the biggest and most successful school preparation program, I think, worldwide. It evolved in DepEd over time, but today, parang 8 million, last time I checked, 8 million individuals and whatever billions of pesos are donated every year to all the schools, 46,000 nationwide, during that month prior to the opening of the school year. Usually from May, the last 2 weeks of May. I think that's a working model na lahat ng tao, yung isa magdadala ng pinta, yung isa may board, but it's something physical preparation for a school. Ang advocacy ko is lahat tayo may papel. And let's shift from, palagi ko magaganda na, medyo magaganda na yung mga eskwelahan natin ngayon, no? Hindi na sila pipitsugin. We can shift now from physical infrastructure into something that will address the learning crisis, no? And these are something that's more substantial and will really address the needs of the teachers, no? Sana hindi rin just 2 weeks before the school opening. Sana throughout the year may sistema tayo na yung mga eskwelahan ay tumututok. Alam mo, Greg, yung learning action cells, may representative yung parents dyan, pwede rin may representative yung barangay eh. So, those two models, if you actually weave them together, yung sinasabi ng parents, meron ba akong pwedeng tutok? Yes, mamili ka ng eskwelahan na malapit sa'yo.
Sumali doon.
Yes, sumali ka doon. Yung mga parents and retired teachers can help and volunteer to tutor the students who are lagging behind. Kasi yung sabi ng lahat ng studies, ang tutukan natin hindi yung honors class. Kasi magagaling na yun eh. Ang nagdadrag sa atin pababa ay yung mga last mile schools and students who are having difficulty. Yun ang tutukan natin.
Okay. There is this grave statistic you mentioned. 65% of learners are bullied.
Ang sakit, no?
The other one is the problem of connectivity, whether it is electricity, gadget related, o walang load. Nahirapan ng mga estudyante at pamilya sa online learning. Which brings to mind, Brother Armin, hindi ba panahon na tinatawag na yung homeschooling module? Hindi ba parang persado sa atin ngayon yan? Hindi makapasok si Junior, si Nene, si Boy, sa bahay lang, hindi naman maka-access ng connectivity, What about the homeschooling modules? Is this not something that we could capacitate?
You know, yes, but it depends also, Greg, on the capacity of the parents to respond to that. Marami ngayong online na parents na nagsasabi, meron ngang modules yung anak ko. Nai-stress ako dahil hindi ko alam paano tulungan. So, we'll have to be, it works well with parents who are prepared, but not with all. So, but I think what the education system can provide are really modules that are already curated so that those who are on homeschooling can be in sync with the whole curriculum. No? I met with a group of homeschooling parents, advocates, when I was in DepEd. Ang sinabi ko sa kanila, alam nyo, yung inyong mga modules are so good kasi they're doing it for their own children. So talagang hasang-hasa. But I said, why do it for one child? Why don't we come up with a group of homeschooling parents and say, we will share the modules, we will curate it, and we will even share it to those who are in school. And I think that will work very well because ang nangyayari, bawat teacher, bawat parent, parang feeling nila, I have to do it by myself. I think we could help each other and create a real good, especially pwede na ngayon siyang online. So kung magkaklase ka, Greg, sa anak mo, pwede bang i-video namin tapos i-share namin?
Full disclosure, the reason why I asked that is I homeschooled a couple of our kids. So, well, not because walang connectivity, but it was just a value call. Here are some comments, brother.
Greg?
Yeah, Joey, attorney.
The comment of the participants is that the presentation was very comprehensive, no? I mean, talagang lahat na ng aspeto ng problema ay pinakita at pati na yung mga quick wins or mga solutions nasabi rin ni Brother Armin, no? Isa lang bagay ang hindi ko nakita, Brother Armin, yung pagkatao, hindi lang yung karunungan, hindi lamang intelligence ang ating tinitingnan, hindi lang yung nagkaroon ng kaalaman, naging learned yung tao. Paano yung values? Paano mapapatibay yung mga dakilang katangian na dapat makita sa mga Pilipino, like paggalang sa kapwa, karapatan ng kapwa, yung katapatan, halimbawa sa pagiging tao, lalo na pagka naging opisyal ng gobyerno, basic honesty, integrity, love of country or patriotism, nationalism even, although it can be excessive sometimes, no? Paano ito yung mga values na ito ay maitanim din natin sa isipan ng ating mga mag-aaral, at hindi lamang yun talagang karunungan na knowledge for knowledge sake, but the totality of the person. Paano kaya yun, Brother Armin? Mukhang hindi ko nakita. Yun lang ang hindi ko nahagip sa iyong presentation.
My response is twofold. One is sa curriculum, the formal curriculum. Maganda yung tutok ng, ang tawag natin dyan, edukasyon sa pagpapakatao. Actually, pag tingnan mo yung gumawa nitong edukasyon sa pagpapakatao, it's really the journey to become a human being. And it brings in wonderfully, and that's a personal assessment, that this journey towards my being a human being is all grounded in Filipino values. Ang ganda nung description doon, no? But so the curriculum, the formal curriculum, has actually wonderful modules and actually identifies what those values are. They are not Western. They are very much grounded in who we are as Filipinos. No? But I hasten to say that in all studies on values and psychology, palaging sinasabi na values are caught rather than taught. And you can have everything, including time ko, may congressional law. Ang DepEd school, dapat palaging may nakalagay doon, honesty is the best policy. So we were forced to put inside every classroom a poster sa labas ng DepEd, honesty is the best policy. Maganda yon. But all studies in psychology and behavior tell us that while those reminders are helpful, they're helpful for a certain period. What is really sustained, if you want to sustain it, the students and teachers need to see face to face and hear good stories about real people who exhibit those values in real life. Palagay ko, Joey, doon tayo kulang. Hindi kailangan galing sa school. Sa local barangay, we have to be able to have a system whereby people can share good stories of real people, hindi nasa bantayog, nandun sa barangay mismo, na models for them. And it has to be outside of the formal curriculum, but supported by the formal curriculum. And I think this is where, Joey, if I may suggest, Soul Philippines could make that one of your important projects. Identify people, ordinary people, who can be models for their communities. And let's make them part of discovering the soul of who we are as Filipinos.
Let me just share a bit, Brother Armin. Going back to the African proverb that the whole village must be involved in the education of a child. So we cannot put all our eggs in one basket, as if it is the educational system that will be able to achieve that. No, I mean, the best Filipino traits are being molded or inculcated, or the values are inculcated in school. As you said, the whole society, the leaders must set the examples. The media must highlight those positive values. No, so the church, the business, even in the business sector, there should be a lot of stories going around that will highlight those values, so that society the norm becomes that is the standard that everybody now reinforced by the school. Of course, the families have to be involved. So it's a multi-sectoral. It has to be a multi-sectoral approach. Maybe we can also learn now from Korea, the way they have used the media, especially the film, the K-pop, the Korean telenovela. You know, if you watch them, and it's by design. You know, it's intentional that they are able to promote certain values, and which have been accepted not only in South Korea, but in many countries in the world. They're patronizing this K-pop and this Korean telenovela. Of course, some may be propaganda in that sense, but I think they're very serious in promoting certain values that they want the Koreans to embrace and uphold. So it's the citizen. There's a branding for a Korean product, a branding for a Korean citizen. And it's not only the work of the school. To be fair, we cannot pin all our hopes in the school. All sectors must play its role, but the school has a very important role in that regard.
Sen Joey, baka naman pwedeng umpisan mo ang Filipino telenovela pero values ang ating ipapakita.
Yeah. Well, the Korean telenovela, they show the values but in a very entertaining manner. Hindi hard sell. So it really has to be a very creative, ingenious work. And I think the Koreans are doing very well in that regard. They have a Ministry of Culture, by the way, separate from the Ministry of Education.
In the chat box, there is a kind of effort. If they wanted to share videos now, how to go about it. So maybe this is one way that to make short videos of models. And Veronica Phoenix said that I agree with Brother Armin and Joey. The parents themselves should be the models of integrity, of character, and patriotism. So, and it should be a whole, Test Chan says it should be a whole community effort, all aspects of society, examples of good values, and not to be made to appear that they are special. It should be the norm.
Yung i-mention ko lang just to connect it with schools, excellent schools. So, we're in the middle of this crisis and we see the national figures, ang baba ng Pilipinas. But even in that example, there are several schools, public schools, private schools that are doing very well. So, another way of doing it is, i-document natin. Ano ba yung sistema doon? Ano ba yung ginagawa nila? Saan ba sila gumagastos? Ano ba yung investment nila? Because if we just keep talking about mababa ang Pilipinas, bagsak tayo, ay talagang hopeless na tayo. But even with this bad system, sick system, merong mga magagaling na eskwelahan, principal, divisions. No? Let's document them because there are lessons learned from those schools.
The bright spots theory. Focus the spotlight on a few bright areas and then scale it up, Brother Armin.
Yes.
Well, this matter has already been addressed, but let me just highlight this, though. The low teacher-student ratio, according to Veronica Phoenix, low teacher-student ratio and high number of students per class in urban areas is a big problem, and disadvantaged students are also here in Metro Manila. Highly urbanized cities, budget and management should be responsive also to these schools. Brother Armin, let me just share, as a former DILG secretary and local official, governor of Laguna, and one time governor of Metro Manila, when there was still a governor in Metro Manila. Indeed, the problem is national. I mean, it cut across the entire country, from Batanes to Tawi-Tawi, or from Tawi-Tawi to Batanes, depending on who is the one giving the reference. But the national problem can be broken into parts. And your presentation highlighted that. I mean, if we localize the problem, the local people who know the ground, they can offer better solutions to the problems, adapt the solutions to their particular situation. But this will entail very good local leaders. No? Lalaki nga ang pondo nila by 2022, which still a hope. It's not yet a reality. But having money, according to one of the comments here, but utilizing the funds is another thing, no? So the problem is really complex. You may have all the money in the world, but if it goes to the pockets of certain individuals, then we will not solve the problem. Bottom line is there should be competent and God-fearing leadership in all levels. And that is not an impossible dream. It is a reachable star, because bottom line, whatever problem there is, whatever solution is being presented, you need leaders to implement them, who understand the problem, who know how to implement the solution. So leadership, bottom line is leadership, whether in school or in local government, in national government, leadership is the key to solving many of these problems. And hopefully, by 2022, our people are ready to elect local and national leaders who can do the job.
Joey, I will just add, leaders who can work with other leaders. Kasi kagaya nga nung all of these problems, hindi mo pwedeng isang leader lang who knows the answer to everything. It has to be a community of leaders in their own right, but they should be willing and humble enough to work with all other leaders. That's what we need.
Amen to that, Brother Armin.
Senator Lina, would you like to, we went over time, ang daming questions pa rin. We shall submit to Brother Armin these questions as well as those in the chat box. But
Brother Armin, if there is a request for your presentation, can we share it with the? with those?
Please,
Huh?
please do. Yes.
Okay, because as already said, and I agree to the statement, very comprehensive, no? Very, very comprehensive. So we can easily follow. We will use your paper or your lecture as a reference, you know, in trying to analyze the issues with regard to education in our country. I think I already said it, Brother Greg, that bottom line is this: the problem has been identified, the solutions have been offered. Of course, we cannot go into the very detailed programs on how the solution, on every solution. There has to be a complete program. But at the end of the day, there is somebody who has to, there is a need for somebody who will take up the cudgels, who will initiate and mobilize, rally the people, whether in the educational sector, in the community. Something has to, somebody will have to do the task of coordinating, mobilizing, and getting the programs implemented. So, Brother Armin, maraming salamat sa iyong oras na binigay sa paghahanda mo dito sa presentation na ito.
Na-stress ako.
Tama. Education is a priority. Kaya ikaw ang una. Ikaw ang education ang ating inuna. At ikakalat pa namin itong iyong presentation to as many people as possible, especially the stakeholders themselves. Sa susunod, bago ko i-advertise kung ano yung susunod na mga topic, palakpakan natin uli and praise the Lord for Brother Armin Luistro, a very outstanding citizen of this country. We need more people like him. And hopefully, whoever will be in the next administration will tap the services of Brother Armin Luistro. He's still young, he's still
yes,
energetic, and he's ready to serve our people. Not necessarily to be elected, but to serve in whatever capacity, because he has a lot of wealth of knowledge and experience. So, palakpakan natin uli si Brother Armin Luistro. Maraming
salamat. Maraming salamat.
before anything else, Senator, just a few important administratives. For those requesting a certificate of attendance, please just...
okay, si Greg, medyo nag-freeze ka, Greg. Can you repeat that?
Yes. For those asking for a certificate of attendance, please, we will provide a link so that you could access that link. Or di kaya you could also even now put in the chat box your request for a certificate of attendance to this webinar. So thank you for your interest, and that shows that baka pwedeng creditable itong ating mga webinar pala, Senator Lina. No?
Okay, sa susunod, pag-usapan natin is food security. Can it be achieved while ensuring that the producers are protected as well as the consumers? So it's not just food security, getting the people the needed food in the country, sustained, etc., ready. But how about the farmers? How about the consumers? So there should be a balancing of interest here. That will be the next topic, food security while achieving inclusive growth. Our resource person will be former Secretary of the Department of Agriculture, Leonie Montemayor. So we will inform you, and please, of the details, but it's on January 23rd. So please put it already in your calendar. January 23rd, 7 p.m. You can invite your friends, and hopefully what we're doing here and the knowledge we gather will be shared with as many people as possible, so that the mass of people in this country will be knowledgeable about these issues, and in the end look for people who can implement them at the proper time. So after that, we will discuss the workers' welfare. What do we do with our people who are working? And we already know that the wealth of the country is skewed in favor of a few. How about the workers? What programs do we undertake to make sure that the workers are also protected and enjoy a better or higher quality of life? Next, we will talk about climate change, climate mitigation, climate adaptation, rapid industrialization. How do we achieve that with AI and artificial intelligence, robotics, Internet of Things, 3D printing, and so on and so forth? No, where are we as far as industrialization is concerned? We have about 40 topics to discuss until August of this year. So please join the webinars. This is for free, and invite your friends and even relatives, so that we will have a community of people who really understand the problems of our country, including the solutions to said problems. So hanggang dito lang. Greg, you still have...
For the benefit of those who might not yet have searched the SoulPH 2020 Facebook page, no? Please log in there for previous webinars that have been post-produced, such as the West Philippine Sea issue, as well as Inclusive West Philippine Sea by Justice Carpio. Napakaganda po. And the Inclusive Growth presentation of former NEDA Secretary Cielito Habito. Brother Armin's presentation, beautiful. Halos kulang na. In its entirety, shoot na natin yan sa Facebook. So log on to facebook.com/SoulPH 2020. Nandoon po yung mga dating webinar, and we will continue to beef up so that it will be a public resource. It will help in the education of the citizenry on a variety of issues, important issues. Senator?
So there is also one topic. Ako yung resource person, and that is localizing the problems, precisely empowerment of local governments. I think one half of the problem of the country will be solved if we empower the local governments with competent outsiders, no? Of course, that is one topic, big topic itself, and it's for your information. I'd like to share that with you because I'm also teaching local government in law school, so I'm prepared to present that kind of paper, and I'm sure you will also enjoy that kind of presentation. So, Greg, we can end with a prayer before we part ways. Since nandiyan naman si Brother Armin, can we also ask him to close this with a prayer?
Let us remember that God has been with us from the very beginning, and God will see us through. Father in heaven, you know very well that we cannot raise a child alone, that we need to work together. And we can only do this with your power and with your grace. Give us your blessing so that we can be citizens of this world, leaders who can actually create solutions for the challenges before us. Give us the heart to take care of every child in our community so that they may grow up according to your image and likeness. Grant us the grace to be able to teach them, not only with words, but also by our own examples. Grant us the grace to see a country where everyone is working according to your own wisdom, to your own goodness, and to the mission that you have given to each one of us. Then we can live in joy, in happiness, in prosperity and peace. Grant us the soul of a nation that looks to you as our creator, relies on you for strength, and goes back to you in gratitude for all the gifts that you have given us. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Well, that ends our webinar for this evening. Maraming salamat mga kababayan at kayo nanatili hanggang sa bandang huli. And we hope to see you again January 23. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat.
Praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord.